At 9 p.m. Eastern, which is just about an hour from the start of this show, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, will address the nation. Reporting suggests he will address 2020 election irregularities and interference from China. How far will he go with it? We don't exactly know. Some speculate. I would speculate he's going to say, hey, China interfered. Thank you and have a nice day. And I don't think we will get anything substantive other than what we already know. This was reported on in 2022 that China had interfered and there was classified information as to such that was never released. Some reporting has suggested Trump will accuse two sitting Democrat senators of being illegitimate. And according to the Daily Beast, there are fears inside the administration that Trump is going to do something crazy. And my response to that is one can only hope. So here's hoping that Trump actually does something crazy, because my expectation is that he's going to say what we already know, thank the American people, and that'll be the end of it. But this could be big. Considering we're about 3.5 months from the midterm election, we've already seen redistricting, and the Republicans, they can't afford to lose. Namely, Trump can't afford to lose, otherwise he'll be impeached. The question is, how far is Trump willing to go to make sure they cannot use the weight of the legislative branch to come after him? I'd argue there's a decent probability he may actually try to do something. Whether it'll be today, who knows? But with these looming accusations against Warnock and Ossoff, it is interesting. Some believe that Ossoff could be a contender for 2028, and Trump is making these moves to try and stop him before that happens. So we'll talk about that. Plus, we actually have crazy news, and it's surprising that we're not leading with this, but an ICE building in Arizona was fired upon. So they shot at this building. And this is crazy. So as much as we haven't seen riot season, people are pointing out this fervor is still here. We shall see. Before we get started with the news, my friends, head over to Timcast.com and click join now to be a member of the Timcast Discord. I was going to say Timcord. Timcast Discord community. We got tens of thousands of members hanging out every single day. There's morning shows, afternoon, evening. There's even after shows for IRL. And as a member, you can call into the uncensored Timcast IRL show only on Rumble. But more importantly, your membership makes what we do here possible. We cannot do this without you. This show is funded in part thanks to viewers like you. So if you believe in the work that we're doing, don't just sit idly by. Be the change you want to see in the world and support us now at Timcast.com. And also, if you go to the merch section at Timcast.com, you can buy this really cool shirt that depicts, let me see if I can get a bigger, I can zoom in on it. Nope. It's got a picture of, oh, that's what you get, right? Oh, there we go. We got it. Nope, that's about it. Anyway, it's Ian as a redcoat being shot by all of us. So a bunch of revolutionary Timcast IRL crew members and hosts, and evil Redcoat Ian ending. However, there is a comic that we are working on with the backstory to this, and there is a sequel because, in fact, Ian does not die here. He does not. So check that out at Timcast.com. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you've ever met in your life. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we got Good Lawgic.
Good evening. My name is Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. I'm a New York litigator turned podcaster after COVID lockdowns, and I host a nightly show called The Following Program 5 times a week, which airs on YouTube and on Rumble on my channel, Good Lawgic, Lawgic. And my stream starts actually right when Tim Pool's Timcast IRL tends to end. I start at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So,
all right on. Yeah. It's gonna be fun, especially with a lot of talk. There's a lot of legal questions that maybe you might have some insight into, considering what Trump is going to say. So we'll talk about that. Libby's here.
I'm glad to be here with you guys. Looking forward to the show tonight.
And the boys.
What's up, homie? What up? Hey, if you like that Redcoat, if you like the Ian Cross on Renegade Redcoat concept, dude, get behind it, because I think there could be an entire story arc.
Oh, we have a comic book that we're making.
Yeah, dude, like that's fascinating.
And then the next skateboard and shirt we're making is Ian's Revenge.
Dude, that's where my head is at anyway. So let's go.
Yeah, he wants revenge against all of us.
Deeply.
The comic's going to be great because one of the scenes is when Ian betrays all of us. He's like, "You never listened. You always made fun of me and belittled me on the show. You never took me seriously.
People are just like,
now
yes.
you'll pay."
And then later he's like, "I'm sorry, I was wrong about you. I got it all. I'm sorry, I got it all wrong."
And then aliens come and we team up. Who knows? Anyway.
Good. Undead. All of it.
Anyway, there's Phil.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phil.
All right, you guys ready? Let's get into it. We got the story from the Daily Beast. Trump's primetime speech has Republicans scared ishless. Insiders are terrified the president will do something crazy on live TV. My friends, we have about 56 minutes right now in this podcast before Donald Trump gives his address to the nation. It's expected that he is going to say China stole the election or interfered, that sitting members of Congress are actually illegitimate. The question is, what action will he propose? And apparently, according to this reporting, he may do something crazy. And I'm just saying, please, can you do anything? I'm so bored. I mean that half jokingly. We got this from Reuters. ABC and NBC will not air Trump's election security speech on broadcast networks. And I can only say thank you to these networks, because that means more people will watch our shows and you will be less relevant because you don't cover the news. I can't imagine. Okay, I'm going to put it like this. Guys, what was the news today? Libby, did anything happen?
There was a couple of things.
A couple of things, maybe just a little bit here. And what's NBC and ABC actually going to cover? The big news today that we've all been waiting for is that Trump's going to come out and he's going to say something. Whether you love him or hate him, you want to know what he's going to say. And ABC and NBC is like, we'll talk about, I don't know, crop circles, which is interesting.
They'll talk about it after, and then they'll tell you what they want you to think about it.
Right.
But they won't let you think for yourself about it.
Yeah, that is pretty bad form, I guess. Like they're going to editorialize afterwards.
They'll show us some little clips.
They'll show clips, but they'll
take it out
show
of
clips so that
context.
way, exactly. So that way they can tell their viewers what the context is supposed to be. It's almost like they're helping to prepare people on the left for what they're going to get onto X and Facebook and stuff and broadcast, like they want to make sure.
They
that
also
people have
want all their
message.
viewers who are not watching the speech to feel superior to the people who do watch the speech.
Yeah, there's also that. That's true.
See, that's a change, because mainstream media, what they've always been about is obviously controlling the media and what messaging. Doesn't matter what actually happens on the ground. What ultimately happens, what people see and perceive to be reality, is all that they ever really cared about. And since they're sculpting that by curating what you can see and what you can't see, this is just a natural extension of that they say, we don't want you to see Trump, and that way you're not going to subscribe to anything that he might be putting out there to the public. But it's interesting that they're willing to self-immolate. And it's not like there's, like as Tim was pointing out, it's not like there's even like a big story that's going on here. There's nothing that's happening here. You're going to cover yesterday's, rallies or new rallies today that are coming out of Bidfield because somebody ran into an ICE agent and got killed. I mean, there's nothing that's really developing today, but they're so desperate to curate that they have to.
It's also weird because they're going to be like the last ones to know about what he says. I mean, it could have been live on their channels, so the breaking news, they're not going to have it.
The only thing that has me thinking something might actually happen is Bill Pulte.
Why?
Well, Trump brought in a lot of people, and we saw a whole lot of nothing. And then he brings Bill Pulte into the Federal Housing Authority or whatever, and then Pulte finds, 3 instances of falsification of mortgage documents. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you hire all these people to weed out corruption, and the only guy who delivers is the housing loan application guy. That shows that he's really doing the work. Yeah. Trump brings him in as acting DNI, and all of a sudden he's about to go on TV. I got to say, with all due respect to the people who Trump brought in, I think many of them were worried about the politics of the actions they would take. I don't think Pulte is. And again, I'm not gonna drag anybody that's no longer with the Trump admin, but did we see a whole lot of anything politically from a lot of these people? With all due respect, not really.
Clearly not.
Except for Pulte. No. Pulte comes into office of the DNI, and all of a sudden he's like, "Here we go. We got these documents," and he's going to be appearing with Trump. He's the one guy I think is actually willing to go the distance.
There's also been all of this work done, I think, in the Trump White House to get a bunch of documents declassified. Like, I know John Solomon's been working on that, and a bunch of other people. So we'll see if maybe some of this has to do with that.
This refusal of to air by who's it, NBC and ABC, it kind of indicates that the deep state, that the liberal economic order is terrified of Donald Trump, that they're not aligned, that he is building a new
and they
world
control
order.
Those networks.
They're trying to, it's just like the vestiges of the Swiss banks failing to control the guy and his messaging.
Well, he also sent down this week, they said that he had 200 agents in Fulton County that were sent down with a specific deadline of July 17th, which was not a court-imposed deadline. It's a self-imposed deadline, which makes you wonder, why would they just pick this date unless it's to set him up for this evening? Right.
Or they had this deadline because they wanted to have it, like the fact that it's coming out today means that the deadline was met. Right. Or it's presumably the deadline was met.
What came out today? What was it?
Well, it was like 3 or 4 days ago. It came out that in Fulton County, they sent down 200 FBI agents to leaf through the records of the of what was going on in Fulton County in the 2020 election, and that specifically that they were given a deadline, which was a self-imposed deadline, to go through the records, because these records are not federal records, they're state records. So in accessing and getting, there's been a whole fight between the state and the federal government with respect to their ability to get in there and the subpoenas that they issued, and it's not a court-ordered deadline. If it's a court-ordered deadline that they say you can only deal with these records for X period of time, you can understand why they're going to call July 17th as a specific deadline. It was a very ponderous type of thing where you had the government was putting a self-imposed deadline of July 17th. And
let's get as fantastical as possible. Just pie in the sky, it's never going to happen stuff, like when Roseanne came on the show and said there'd be military tribunals. If it's true, according to this reporting, that he's going to accuse Ossoff and Warnock of being illegitimate, there is a microscopic possibility that he will accuse them of some kind of legal impropriety. Pie in the sky, maybe that's not the right way to describe it because it's actually rather terrifying, but if Trump were going to arrest a sitting politician for election fraud, he would probably announce it to the nation before making the move. You wouldn't just go in and arrest a senator without notice because people would freak out if it happened. If Trump comes out and then says, here's the evidence that these individuals were party to election fraud, manipulation, and interference, we will be issuing an indictment, or we have an indictment, to be issued. He would go about it this way for PR reasons. Now, as I said, as fantastical as possible. What is actually going to happen is he's going to come out and go, it's not fair, thank you, have a nice day.
It'd be hilarious if, as he's doing this speech, an FBI, a task force swoops in and just picks them both up.
Hilarious?
Well,
It'd be like a dream come true.
It would be hilarious.
What if he, gave them 24 hours to turn themselves in on national TV?
Why? They didn't give Roger Stone any time?
No, it's true, but
that's the thing. So, but the reality is nothing's going to happen. No. Nobody has the balls in this country. Look at Amy Coney Barrett, right?
Oh gosh.
We looked at the data showing her opinions before Dobbs and then after. Mm-hmm. She may as well be in the corner of her room, crying in the fetal position.
My pie in the sky is not that we get arrests, because I think that this Ossoff guy, I was just told over the last weekend when I was at the Take Back America tour that he's the front runner for the Democratic Party for president.
He's not. Newsom is.
Or he might become one of the top contenders. So arresting him in some kind of thing that he might make him a superstar. So let's ease off the gas here. But what I want Trump to do, pie in the sky, is say, we are securing elections. Because sometimes dictators will be like, we're securing the election, and they make it only you can vote for them. Okay, right. But what I want is legit digital solving these Dominion machine problems.
Just say it. You want to say it.
Open source software machines for voting. And I know Dominion sold to another company. Now they're owned by another company.
Anytime.
Let me just real quick. I want to pull up because you mentioned Ossoff as a front runner.
Yeah.
We got this from the Kalshi prediction markets. Newsom is the favorite, 21% in the prediction markets, followed by Ocasio-Cortez and Ossoff tied at 15%. So it is true. He is a major contender for 2028, but he is not the favorite. To be fair, I don't know if Newsom actually has what it takes, so it could be Ossoff.
Yeah, Newsom's got the leftover name recognition. Ossoff's a new name. I just heard him for the first time last week.
But if Trump comes out and says that they were involved in election fraud stuff,
well, and Ossoff had major national commercials going out.
Really?
Yeah.
My view is I believe that the Democrats and Republicans of the pre-Trump were deferential to China, and that was the plan the whole time. Moving the U.S. manufacturing base to China, moving trade, moving banking, and then shifting the wealth of the elites to China so that eventually the U.S. falters. They move the economic center to China, and the wealthy keep their wealth. And it's that old question of when the emperor comes to the small kingdom and tells the king, drop your swords and bend the knee, and the king says, we'll fight you to the bitter end, and the king says, don't fight me, I'll make you a lord in the country, you'll have wealth and women forever, and you will have everything you've ever wanted. And he says, okay.
Rob the subservience.
Right. Would you rather be a wealthy lord in a great kingdom, or would you rather be dead? Is the old warlord argument. And so the idea is that back in the late 80s into early 90s, the U.S., the politicians and the industrialists were like, look, we're not going to be able to beat China. They're ascendant. So let's transfer our wealth over there. Then when the U.S. falls as the unipolar power, we'll all be set for life. So imagine what happens when Trump gets into office and and the first thing Michael Flynn says is, Russia is not our biggest enemy. China is. These elites who have been building up their wealth in China for a long time. How about a president and son who flew to China to negotiate investment deals. Imagine what they must be thinking when they see Trump get in saying, I'm going to shut all this down. They're thinking decades of hard work and wealth transfer is about to be erased. Everything we've built for 30, 40 years, erased. Trump must be stopped. That's what I think they're doing. And that's why I think Trump coming out now and saying China was involved in stealing the election, I think it's true.
I've had fascinating conversations last week. I mentioned it's like the Take Back America tour is aligned with the Democratic Party, so it's nice to be involved with people in that sphere and understand. But like we were talking about fascism because they were like down with fascism. Like Federal Reserve is. It's not real. Real fascism.
They don't know
we don't
what
have.
fascism is.
Real
bro.
fascism is religious adherence to your government's authority.
They're just saying bad guy.
Yeah. So I redirected the conversation to the Federal Reserve, and then I told them about the Bank for International Settlements in Switzerland that the Federal Reserve reports to, that oversees the Bank of England, the Bank of Australia, the New York Federal Reserve, and they go through this Swiss bank that kind of controls the economics of these three systems, and they were all, essentially opened up to this new information about the real problem. This organization through the banks have been trying to turn us into a communist technocracy using the Chinese model, and they have been doing it for 40 years. So this is a big disruption to the plans.
I would bet the people that you were talking to, it went in one ear and out the other.
Fortunately not.
They were not there. That is not a compelling argument to people on the left generally, because it's the same argument that libertarians have been making for decades.
But I was spending time with like highly intelligent orchestrators of movements. It wasn't just random people in crowds. It was like nice to have intellectual conversations about global economics.
I hope you're right, but I still think that, because again, these arguments, like talking about the banking system and stuff like that, it's been almost common knowledge, at least for people that are aware of like libertarianism and libertarian arguments. It's been common knowledge for 2 decades, 3 decades, or whatever.
That's 2% of the. That's 2% of the population. That's not your regular American. I think calling attention to the evil of China and how they're evil, not just saying China, but actually identifying how they're a threat to us, is important. But there's nothing stupider. If he's actually going to go after Ossoff tonight, there is nothing stupider than trying to persecute him politically, like legally through legal channels. That's exactly how Trump went from being a relatively dead candidate at the end of 2021, 2022, into ascending into an unstoppable force in the 2024 election.
Yeah, but that assumes that's as far as Trump is willing to go. They tried putting Trump in jail and they lost. If Trump is willing to put Ossoff or Warnock or others in jail and he succeeds, then he succeeds. End of story.
You'd think he'd learn it. He would have learned though that could make them just more powerful.
The argument that. Again, we don't know what he's going to say about Ossoff or Warnock. I don't want to operate from the premise that they did anything criminal. I'm just saying they tried to put Trump in jail for fake reasons. Right. The question is, this argument is, but if you do it, they'll do it. No. I don't play that game. They won't do it if you win. This argument that if we abolish the filibuster, then they're going to do it too. Not if we win. If we get rid of the filibuster and then we steamroll through the SAVE Act and other changes and reforms, they're never going to win again.
Well, I think when
they're going to do it, if you don't do it, you let them in, then they will take the power. If you don't do it, it's the inverse.
When they were trying to put Trump in jail, I feel like even if they thought they win because they actually got him in jail, I felt like there would have been a violent revolution in the like a Caesar-like overthrow of the government by his angry followers. I'm glad because he didn't get imprisoned. We didn't have that. We had a peaceful transfer of power.
I disagree because the right hasn't taken any kind of organized action to talk about.
They don't even have organized. The most impactful thing the right has done thus far is buy CBS.
Yeah,
and that's big. Don't get me wrong, but it's a long-term play. It's a good play, but it's not doing anything definitively at the moment in terms of forcing people out, putting people in jail. That's why if Trump does something crazy today, it could actually be impactful.
And like what I don't know if this is compelling to people or not, but like, I describe the right and the left use of violence like this, right? Like the left uses violence like a knob. The right looks at violence like a switch. The right does everything they can to avoid violence, right? Like, sure, there are people that are crazy, people that are one-offs and stuff like that, but they don't organize the same way that the left does. The people on the left, the people that are organizers, they intentionally get people that are kind of on the crazy side out there to throw the bricks. They make sure that they have the necessary tools to riot and stuff like that. So they'll turn the violence up and down. People on the right don't behave like that. And should there ever be be a time where violence from the right happens. It's going to be totally different. And I don't think that just Trump going to jail would be enough to get the right to actually be violent, because I think it would take significant violence from the
Did you
left to
hear
get
the-
the right to respond with violence.
Let's do this. I want to jump to the story from the Wall Street Journal. This is big news on the war. U.S. targets Iranian bridges in bid to choke off regime supply routes. Now, I don't actually care about the nitty-gritty, the ins and outs of the war that's going on. The war is bad. I'm not a big fan. I understand why Trump is doing it, but you don't need a play-by-play every single day. Just know that we have this latest escalation targeting Iranian bridges. Now, the question is why? We've got this from oilprice.com, and one line summarizes everything. China cut crude imports by more than 44% during the war's first phase, spending down a 1 billion barrel stockpile it built specifically for this kind of shock. What does it actually mean? China did not cut crude imports. China had their crude imports cut. Trump's war in Iran, or I shouldn't say Trump's, but the U.S. going to war in Iran, blame Trump or whoever you want to blame, cut off the Strait of Hormuz and isolated China from around half of their energy imports. This is the principal reason, I think, when you look at all of the data. Now Trump is coming out and he's going to blame China for election meddling and interference. I got to say, on top of this news, we've got reporting, it's been going on for a while, that China has been building mock U.S. buildings and destroyers to prepare for war against the United States. And we've had some national security sources, friends of the show, say they believe that the U.S. will be at war in the next few years, a major war with China. I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, look, China is absolutely an adversary. We have allowed China to behave in ways that are incredibly detrimental to the United States, to not just our economy, but to the population. They're continuously trying to smuggle in blights, like contaminated trees and plants and stuff like that. There are actually like enclaves that are being policed by China, right, in the U.S. There were definitely in
There's
Canada.
police stations in New York. There's like these secret Chinese police stations. And not to mention the, 1.5 million American-born Chinese people who are being raised in China as Chinese citizens. I actually talked to this woman who was a Hong Kong dissident who is essentially in exile in the UK because the CCP put a bounty on her head. And she was saying that in China, for the most part, if you are a student who wants to study in the U.S., you're vetted by the CCP before you can go. So the CCP basically has their thumb on, their eyes on anybody who's coming here to study from China. And that's probably going to be, we have to watch out, I think, for the birthright people, the birth tourism.
Well, that's China and China. I've said this a bunch of times before. Every single Chinese national is a possible point of espionage, because China has no compunction with telling someone that's here, even if they're here legally, they were born here, that has family in China. They have no compunction with telling those people, we're going to throw your family in jail. We're going to destroy their lives if you don't do this for us. And there's, never mind all of the illegals that came in during the Biden administration. No one knows how many Chinese came in. We don't know if there were tens of thousands or what have you. And that is a serious national security threat.
Well, they rule by outright tyranny, but I don't think we're looking at a potential here for a Chinese hot war. There's going to be, troops squaring off against each other. When you talk about us conflicting with China, so we have essentially what Tim is describing as a proxy war, that we're hitting their supplier and making it hard for them to have to access their oil reserves that they want to be able to purchase from Iran. But it's not. That's not a hot war. I don't envision that. I envision exactly what you're describing, Libby, or what you're talking about here with respect to subverting us, using our own regulations against us, using birthright citizenship, sending them in for the birthright tourism to try and generate generations after generations, theoretically, of communists. That's what the war with communism has been about for the last 50, 60 years, when we had a Cold War, and now. It's not about trying to engage us physically and beat us militarily. It's about beating us economically and subverting the attitudes of particularly of our youth to try and make them come along into recognizing the growing rise of communism and Marxism. That's what you see happening, and it's working. It's being effective. You look at Mamdani, at Kami Mamdani in New York City. You look at the rise of AOC and the West Coast of California with Gavin Newsom and the politicians who are rising up into superstars socialists. That's the real problem, is that breeding culture amongst our youth today. That's how they'll come after us.
Well, I don't think you're wrong in any of the stuff that you laid out, but I also think that China is. I mean, they've made it pretty clear that they still consider Taiwan Chinese territory. They consider some of the islands that Japan. There's conflict over who actually owns some of the islands, because Japan is a massive archipelago. It's not just the one mainland of Japan. I mean, Okinawa, which has the 3rd Marine Division, or at least it had the 3rd Marine Division for a long time. There's still a huge Marine Corps base there. Like that is like probably 2/3 of the way away from mainland Japan towards Taiwan. It's very close. And I don't like China's been making all kinds of effort to basically say that the whole South China Sea is theirs. They really are they're flexing their muscles and they're trying to expand. And I wouldn't be particularly surprised if there was some kind of conflict that came about in the next 5, 6, 7 years.
That would only be if we actually have sufficient interest in Taiwan, ultimately. I mean, the reason we have an interest in them today is it's a financial super chip issue, as far as that they're able to provide us with something that we can't uniquely get from them. And the concept that MAGA has had is that we want to start developing that and find a way to develop that at home, so we're not dependent on China or on Taiwan. So when we get to a point that we don't need those super chips from Taiwan anymore, in that case, frankly, we shouldn't be doing any of this.
This is the issue that I find with progressives. Most of them don't exist in a world of foreign policy. Mm-hmm. So they say things like the United States is evil, and it's like, as compared to whom? Mm-hmm. And they say things like, when was America great? And I say, when we weren't deferential to foreign powers, and we had the dominant global manufacturing base. And this meant that you could have a high school diploma and afford to have your own house and a stay-at-home wife with 3 kids. That's when America was great. What they do is, because they don't understand the concept of foreign policy, it's as if the only country on the planet is the United States. In their mind, making America great means white supremacy for some reason. Because they can imagine, they don't understand what China is doing to their people.
But it's also so weird, right? Because you have the progressive left both hating America and being even more American exceptionalist than anybody else. Because you have them saying, everybody should get to come to the United States because it's not good in their country and they want a better life here, but America sucks. And those things are incompatible, right? Like, why do illegal immigrants need to come here if their countries are also fine? But the progressive left says that they're not. And when they look out at the world, like you're saying, they only see the United States. They don't see all of the other countries. And it's because the other countries don't really matter to them. They only are focused on the oppressor victim mentality. And, they say that America is the only country. So that's sort of how they act about things. I think it's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, if you appreciate free speech, I think global dominance takes on another meaning, because if we don't control, I don't know if control is the right word, but police preserve the world order with our military, our way of life will disappear. Free speech is not on the agenda of the liberal economic order. It wants corporate.
So what do you suggest, that we need to stop countries who might supplant us, disrupt our trade, or send terrorists? I mean that literally. You said we should use our military to defend our way of life.
Yeah, really.
Well, I'm asking, are you saying the U.S. we should intervene in countries that are a growing threat to the
interventionism?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a case-by-case system, because China, I don't like it. I like the idea of maybe spending 12 years refabricating on our mainland before we give Taiwan back to the Chinese.
What do you mean give? We don't.
Back.
We don't. Yeah, we don't.
It's
not
Chinese
ours.
Island,
Yeah, but it's not ours.
No,
it's not the United States.
Before we relinquish our
is China. Mainland China was the communist takeover.
Right, and the Republic of China.
So we should give back the mainland to the Republic of China.
The Chinese Communist Party should give back China to the Republic and make the Chinese a republic again, which was what they're supposed to be. In my opinion. They were an empire for thousands of years.
It's this clear. The uniparty machine thinks they're better than you. And they would prefer a system by which the elites control everything and you only pretend.
We have to prove to
Trump and MAGA is populism, we're going to win. And the uniparty is, we're going to let you think you're winning, but we're always in control.
Right. We have to prove economically, probably to the world, that the American decentralized way of life is better than their totalitarian centralized systems. We have to show it. In the next 20 years, we have to economically prove that living on a farmstead can create more bounty than hoping the government gets your check paid to you on time.
That
And
is,
then people will overthrow their
build the
bullshit.
wall.
no, that is an uncompelling argument.
It's boring, but that's the
no,
truth.
no, it's not. It's not boring. It's uncompelling. You're offering people working on a farm or sitting at home playing video games while the government gives you checks.
I know.
That is not.
To
That
show
is.
them that the farm is a better way of life.
You are not going to show them anything. They're going to show you the door
have to
and
be
say,
changed, you know?
"I am getting DoorDash."
Yeah, but if you make videos and you do YouTube videos of you with your chickens and you
come
outside
on.
and people
No,
see how
no.
lovely
No.
the world can be.
Have you met a progressive?
Otherwise, what do you got? It's just going to be centralized, top down. I mean, you have to
no,
show
hold
them
on,
that
hold on.
decentralized governance is better.
Ian, one day when you're older, you will find people who will say one thing and do another. And I guarantee you, if you go to two progressives, I'll make a bet with you right now. How much money do you think I got to give some progressive to make him a conservative? How much money?
How long do you want them to stay conservative?
Forever.
Oh, you have to pay them regularly then.
That's
Well,
right.
that's exactly what the government's doing.
My point. My point is, I can go to any one of these progressives that appear on these debate shows and say, here's what we'll do. I'll give you a 5-year contract. We'll pay you $150,000 a year, but we want you to be more moderate. Can you do that? They're going to say, done. Absolutely. They're going to say, oh, I'm not a big fan of the far left anyway. And then what we do is we say, we'll do a 6-month probation just to make sure we're all happy. 6 months later, I'll come back and say, we think you're a little bit too progressive. You don't got to say you're supporting Trump or anything, but I think you can still lean into some of these more right-leaning arguments to feel balanced. And then they'll say, okay. I'll tell you what, dude, I could go to a progressive and I can tell them, if I write you a check for $100,000, I want you to make a PSA saying you support Donald Trump and you apologize for being progressive. They're going to say yes.
But wouldn't then they later be like, well, I was bribed to say it all? Like later,
No,
they
you know
would
why? Because then they have to admit that they were grifting the whole time.
But that's
They'd rather just take the $100,000 and then be a
so
conservative.
is your argument that a better option would be to bribe?
No, my
the party
argument
to be
is
more American?
if you go to people and you say your option is roll up your sleeves and do the hard work and be happy, or we'll give you money for free, they'll say, give me the money for free. And you can show them everything you want. And they will tell you, I understand the value of hard work and why it's important, but given the opportunity, I'll choose the free money.
I mean, look, man, not for nothing, but like you're sitting here talking about like you should be a homesteader. You don't have a homestead yourself, right? Like you're not out there like living off the land or any of that
Buying
stuff.
a farm, you know.
What?
I gotta
I'm looking at
say,
buying a farm right now.
Well, I mean,
listen, I gotta say, like, I bought a house after, apartment living for many, many years, and I still can't even figure out how to weed my garden. I bought a tree, it died. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
It's really, really easy. I explain. What you do is you get in your car, you drive down to Home Depot, and you go, trabajo.
No, but I got a kid and everything. I just force him outside, and then he comes in, and he's like, "It's hot," And I'm like, "You want some lunch?" I mean,
what
it's
I've
not.
noticed
It's
is,
not.
like-
What you need to do is you got to lean into gender roles.
Right.
Be like, look, I'm gonna make sandwiches, okay?
I do
in the
make
kitchen,
sandwiches. Are you kidding?
In the
I
air
make the
No, I know,
sandwiches.
but like, see, what the funny thing is,
I'm all
when
about
men
sandwiches.
when men are like, they make the joke about women being in the kitchen, the woman should respond with, "Yeah, it's air conditioned and clean, and I'll just make a sandwich. You go do the labor." Like, it's the
Also,
weirdest
like,
thing. That's an
making food
insult.
is
Like,
great.
you get to stay.
like
You get
making
to stay in the air conditioning while I do sweaty labor. It's like, okay.
Sarah's got that down pat.
See, but that's the emotional subservience that everyone naturally feels an inability to feel subservient without feeling as if it's demeaning to them as an individual.
Yeah.
So that's why it could be the greatest job on earth, where all you have to do is make one sandwich for your man and carry out a nice plate for them. But the subservience makes it not worth it to them.
Right. There's
I
this
remember
movie.
early in my marriage, there was I knew that my son's dad's grandma had accepted me as part of the family. Whenever we would go over Northeast Philly, she would make sandwiches for everybody. And one day she said, "Do you want to make his sandwich, hon? Yeah, go ahead." And I was like, "Okay, now I'm part of the family. I get it.
There's this
I'm making the
movie.
sandwich."
I can't remember what the movie was called, where like a guy gets a genie. No. Keanu Reeves is in it. What is it called? And then he wishes he was like Seth Rogen hires an assistant. I think Aziz Ansari's in it. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But then he wishes he had the wealthy life, and then he and Seth Rogen switch places.
Sounds
And
like
then
trading places.
it's something like that. And Keanu Reeves is like, now that you realize it's not all it's cracked up to be, don't you want to go back? And he's like, no. He's like, I just sit around all day. I'm rich. This is fantastic. And he's like, but you need to give him his life back and go back to your life. And he's like, why would I do that? My life sucked. Yeah, it's funny. The point ultimately is this.
Good fortune, isn't it?
Good fortune. Yeah, that was funny. And Keanu Reeves is hilarious in it. He's like he's bad at what he does. Anyway, there can be most human beings will tell you that they believe hard work is important. And then if you offer them a life of leisure without having to do hard work, they'll take it in 2 seconds.
You don't have to make people do farm work. That's not. But you got to show them how exciting it can be. Well, if you can make
whitewashing
farm work,
is a lot of fun.
What's that? Whitewashing?
It's so much fun. I'll let you do it, but
it's an extreme example.
Nice guys.
It's like an extreme example. If you can get people to get excited about being an American farmer. That's a big win.
You're not going to do that.
I
No one's
definitely
going to
don't
get
wanna be a
convinced of
farmer.
that from a TV ad of seeing like a bunch of smiling farmers on a farm walking out with their little daughter showing her how to use the.
I don't agree because there's
like,
Instagram channels.
that's so much fun.
Do you even have like the first idea
teach
how
my
much
daughter
of,
how to
an
do
investment
chickens.
you have to have, how much money you have to actually start a farm or
You have to be prepared to lose money for years.
Yeah, I mean, a tractor, right? Like an old beat up tractor is going to cost you $50,000 or
Oh, it's
something.
way more than that.
You got
And the new
to look at
tractors,
open source
John
ecology.
$500,000.
Deere has this whole thing where like they have
tractor, just a regular tractor.
If you want like an
hard to
industrial
repair.
grade actual,
You got to build your own. There's a guy, Mark.
they're super.
Marcin Jakubowski.
Now it's not just buying a farm;
No,
it's building your own.
No, check out
tractor.
Marcin Jakubowski's open source ecology because he put all the schematics to build like the 18 farm machines you're going to need to run your own farm. You build them part by part. You can
Yeah. Do you know how much the parts are going to cost?
Phil, they're between $200,000 and $650,000, with the high end tractors being $1 million.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then you're
yeah,
going to need
for
to
like-
pay people to come fix them. Like you got to build your
a
own.
lot of
if you're
money
gonna-
for
I'm talking like you. Anyway.
You can get it
doesn't
used
matter.
though.
Yeah.
For $100K.
Yeah, but the point that I'm making is like the idea of just like, hey man, go start a farm. Like that is not happening for 99% of the
Look at
people
this.
you're talking about.
Look at
Yeah,
this.
These are the
A John Deere
crazy-
9620R, $386,000.
Yeah, I'm talking
Yeah,
about a
no
totally,
joke. Look at open.
talking about a totally
I don't know
different
what's
kind of
happening
tractor.
here. Are you telling me that the struggle to get people to buy into farms is the cost of a tractor, or the fact that 99% of people who have never set foot on a farm have absolutely no
interest. Yeah,
aspiration
no
of
interest.
going to a farm, visiting a farm, milking a cow, much less getting up at crack of dawn and working actual physical labor all
Oh,
day?
that sounds like the
But
greatest.
don't
thing
we
ever.
have like?
I'm not
we
saying
have,
you don't
like,
love you
No,
wouldn't love it, but I'm just saying people who haven't grown up in that society, there's no point in trying to convince them to do it. I don't know what.
Right.
We
That's why what we do is all of those people go to the island,
Right.
and the rest of us can wake up in the morning, roll up our sleeves with a smile on our face, and tend to the chickens.
There was a time where in the United States, I think it was something like 75 or 80% of the people that lived here were in agriculture. Now it's less than 2%, and it's like,
And we're
that's-
all miserable and on antidepressants.
well.
The
I
thing
mean,
is that we
not
do
People need to
have
get
a-
back to working with animals when they were happy.
We really do have a disconnect, though, between like this whole striver thing and this almost accepted downward mobility. You know, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot because, you know, my son's going to go to college and whatever, and he wants to do that. And I'm supportive of what he wants to do. You know, for a minute, he wanted to join the army, and then he was like, no, I'm not doing that. So whatever. Anyway, but my point is, we do have this real disconnect where a lot of society is just comfortable without trying to work hard to achieve something.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any real goals. And I'm wondering, has it always been like that? Or is that sort of a new thing where you have this kind of like, you know, striver economy that people are just like trying to rack up different kinds of status or whatever that,
But this is why we have to make podcasts illegal.
make podcasts.
Yeah, because everybody's got one and they shouldn't.
That's
I
probably
think
true.
they should-
No.
It's a good supplement
No,
to
enough.
whatever else you do. It shouldn't be your main gig.
We've had enough, everybody. We don't need podcasts.
Like YouTube shouldn't be your main gig. I always found having a thing I do that I'm good at, like acting in the entertainment industry, then I'll come make a YouTube video and like talk about what I do and then go back to my real stuff. It's a good supplement. But people that just, it's like a lifelong politician. If all you do is just talk to a camera,
Chevron has a podcast now.
Chevron.
My local bank has its own podcast. Enough.
Yeah.
We don't need it. We don't need it.
But coming back to this, the promise of the preamble that we're enabling people to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A lot of people lose the point that the promise of America, which is ironic, I'm bringing this up the day after Biden drops his stupid memoir, "Promise Me America," or whatever stupid thing
looks
he
so
has.
bad.
The commercial itself was just a laugh a
Yeah,
minute.
it's terrible.
So
It was a laugh riot.
it was actually, a laugh every 12 seconds. But the whole point is that No one can promise you happiness. The only way you actually attain genuine happiness is through your own pursuit of happiness. So trying to sell people that they should go in this direction, whether it's farming or that direction, in order for people to actually find genuine happiness, they have to pursue their own happiness. If someone gifted Tim Pool with this podcasting gig over here, it's not nearly the same self-satisfaction you have from building it. That's where your ultimate genuine happiness comes.
Yep. There's an old trick. You ever see those guys? They used to sell CDs on the side of the street. You walk down the street. They never gave the CDs away for free because people who get free stuff throw it in the garbage.
Yep.
But if you bought it for $1 or $5, you'd be like, I paid for this.
There's a band that I'm not going to say their name, but they used to get, when they would get free CDs from other bands, like young bands trying to go out, they were like, oh, we got another band from 70 Mile an Hour Records. And be like, what are you talking about? They would literally just throw it out the window because they got it for free. There's no value in it, you know?
Yeah,
and then nobody has CD players anymore either. But I do want to.
Right. I'll just
we got to jump to the story.
Amend my last thing is like, it's not necessarily about showing people to become farmers, but it's showing them to like commit 14 hours a day into the things you love doing.
100%.
Day after day after day. It really pays off.
Yes, but the problem is the things that people love doing are not economically viable
That's
anymore.
why I brought up farming. I know.
Back when everybody worked on a farm, the things people enjoyed doing was farm work. You grew up on a farm, your parents farmed, you got good at farming, and then you were excited to show off your chickens at the chicken festival. You'd go to the local county fair and you'd be like, look at my chicken. And they'd be like, oh, you have the best chicken. And they'd give you an award for it. They still do all of this. But for regular Americans after industrialization, they grow up doing literal nothing. They spend the first 5 years of their lives dicking about with their parents, now just on a tablet doing nothing. Then they go to public school where they get this remedial education, which doesn't really work. Then by the time they're 13, when they should have, as a human being, a basic understanding of the world and the things they enjoy doing, they've still done nothing. So what happens is, we've programmed an entire generation to enjoy nothing because they've done nothing. And when they go to school and graduate, they're like, all I want to do is sit around and play video games and watch TV. Why? That's what they were doing when they were 13 years old. Now, if you take somebody, look at pro basketball players, football, baseball. What were they doing when they were 13? They were playing Little League. They were playing baseball every single weekend.
Craft.
And they want to go and do it. I had a friend who's a pro skateboarder. I have a friend who's a pro skateboarder, who said that when they were a kid, they wanted a skateboard, asked their dad to get them one, and then the dad said, you will skateboard every weekend if I get this for you. Kid didn't want to do it. Dad said, you have to. Kid grows up to be a pro skateboarder, skates every day. I asked her, I was like, are you happy that your parents made you do this? And she was like, yeah, absolutely.
When I was like 13, my parents were like, so what do you want to do with your life? I said, I'm going to be an actor. And I'd been saying that for a few years. My dad was like, well, if you want to be an actor, then you better start acting. And I was like, okay. So
and then
they
you went,
helped me.
Joke's on you, Dad. I just was. I don't want to be an actor at all.
LOL. They took me to my first audition, and then they supported me in the early days. But they were like, if this is what you want to be, you have to start doing it now. And that was when I was like 14.
Let's jump to the story from Arizona. Family, that's the channel. It's I guess it's a CBS. Shots fired at ICE administration building in Phoenix, FBI says. This is wild. This is the FBI is investigating shots fired at a federal immigration enforcement center. According to the FBI, at least one person fired several rounds and struck the exterior of the ICE enforcement and removal operation. No injuries reported. A protest was held outside of the office later that day. So, just so you understand, someone shot at a federal building, and then the leftists came to protest the federal building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where we're currently at in this country.
Well, did you see Marco Rubio's speech this morning where he was talking about the scourge of leftist violence and how it's increasing? And he tracked it back to the 60s and 70s, whether underground, the Black Liberation Movement, all of these different things. And it was really fascinating to listen to him talk about it because...
Hold on, where can I find this speech?
Where can you find the speech?
Is it on his...
the State Department Twitter. Twitter. It was early this morning.
Sorry.
It was really interesting. I recommend watching it. And then you had Scott Bessent came out and talked about how shortly after he was confirmed as Secretary of Treasury, he was the subject of a sort of little terrorist attack. That person is being tried. And we didn't hear a lot about this, but we hear so much still, even after the sort of interrogation of the woke era, we still hear so much about white supremacy and all of this stuff and how they've changed the definition essentially of white supremacy to just mean white person, which is, pretty rude and also false. But I think the Rubio speech is worth listening to, Phil, for sure, because he's talking about how there's just excessive leftist violence and it's pretty much ignored. We've seen it all over the place. Yeah. There was a protest in Maine right after the the immigrant guy tried to like ram ICE agents with the car. And every time it's like this initial fierce reaction, and then the protests start, and then it turns out that the person was pretty much at fault for doing, whatever thing it was that got them killed.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, not that, there haven't been a bunch of other people talking about it, but like I've been talking about how much of a problem the left is in the U.S. and people were swearing up and down. They're like, oh, Donald Trump, 2016, Donald Trump just won. What are you talking about? Blah, 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 blah. We're falling into fascism now. Oh, da, 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 da. And it's all just misdirection because the left has had control of all of the institutions. They've had control of the institutions of learning. They've had control of the government. Even when Republicans are in office, all of the people in the bureaucracy, not all of them, but a massive amount of people in the bureaucracy are leftists. All the people that are giving you the news from the media, they're all basically on the left. And you see some pushback now, and it's really nice to see. But like, there was a time where the only people that were even close to right wing, and that it's not even particularly right wing, was like Fox News, Mitt Romney, and John McCain. Yeah, and Rush Limbaugh was the only guy. Like Pat Buchanan was around, but he was persona non grata. It's like he had some legitimately really good takes, but it was just like, oh, we can't talk about Pat Buchanan. And that was like, he was on Morning Joe for a little while in the early aughts, right? Like that show back when Joe was still considered a conservative, or even though he was very much a big government conservative. And then they tossed Buchanan out because he was too far to the right.
There's a natural marriage between socialism and education, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality. Because if you're raised as a small child to recognize that you want to be a good person, that your own validation comes from being a good person. Good parenting is you're going to teach your kid that you need to be a good person. Mm-hmm. Good person implies selflessness. So there's a natural marriage towards the poison of socialism and education, because you take these people who haven't experienced anything, any real hardship, any real work, don't understand what it means to work and attain value, display your value, and to really develop disciplines to accomplish something, and you basically tell them you need to be a good person, you need to be a good person. Now they come to high school and to college, so there's a natural marriage that's socialism, which is utter and terrible poison and is self-destructive, and the only promise that can come out of socialism, like real socialism, would be absolute misery, because it's depriving the individual of the pursuit of happiness. Just think about how terrible socialism is for a second. That if you could give everyone their housing and you could promise them their food and their clothing and their education, you are denying them the opportunity to attain that for themselves. Yep. So even if it could work, which it never could possibly work if it was tried, and that's why it's failed every single time, but the actual outcome would be that the person would be as miserable as Hunter Biden is, as everyone raised with the silver spoon, as they all are. Why they all act out with cocaine and have miserable lives? Because they don't feel a sense of accomplishment through the pursuit of happiness. That's what socialism is trying to get to and can never possibly reach. But if they could, it would be a disaster.
Are you familiar with Paulo Freire and the book called The Pedagogy of Education?
No.
So this guy wrote a book in the late 70s, I think, and it's called The Pedagogy of Education. Essentially, it boils down to you should teach children through a Marxist lens, right? Through power dynamics. So there are oppressed people and there are oppressors, and that's the way the whole world works. And and that basically has become the book that went into the schools of education. So the schools that teach teachers. And that has filtered through all of our schooling. So from whether it used to be just higher education, but then it's got filtered into your high schools and stuff. And now it's even filtered into grade school, right? So like by the early aughts, you had 2, 3 generations, 4 or 2, 3, 4, 5 graduating classes of kids that had learned that from grade school all the way through to college, right? This is part of why what you're describing is happening, because people have been taught that the world is oppressor versus oppressed. And once you put that mindset in and people see the world as oppressor versus oppressed, right? You have ruined those people, because they can't help but say, well, who's the person that's oppressing here? Who's the person that's being oppressed?
Right. And that's what creates the victim Olympics.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, I'm the biggest victim you ever met. I'm a BIPOC, lesbian, whatever, who's crippled in my left leg, and that way I now win. I have to get the most validation, the most recognition. I'm the most special of everyone. You need to listen to me and recognize the power of my voice and my thoughts, no matter how mindless I'm babbling and blathering and spewing.
And to that point, right? Like you see a lot of young people that were, they would come out and they would say, "Oh, well, I'm a member of the LGBTQ community because I'm bisexual or whatever." They didn't do anything that actually made them bisexual. Maybe the guys would flirt with the guys, girls would flirt with the girls. But what it did was it gave them an escape hatch from being basically normal, right? If you're a white kid in the U.S. and you don't have any kind of like oppression points, you can just go ahead and jump in and say, "Oh, well, I'm oppressed because I'm a member of the LGBT community."
I am tired of millennials and Gen Z claiming that having hobbies is autism. It is the most annoying thing imaginable when they're like, "Well, I'm really into Pokemon because I'm autistic." No, you have a hobby. People like things. Thank you. Bye. Yeah. I saw there's a comic where it's this old man and he's talking to a young person and he's like, "All this autism popping up. We didn't have any of this when I was your age. No one had autism. Oh, look at my train collection." And it's like, bro, having a train collection is not autism. It's called a hobby. But these young people just think autism means like there's things that I like.
Yeah.
Stop.
Organize.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Oh, categorizing, collecting, and organizing is a very healthy thing for the human brain's memorizational capacity.
Like every single person who you enter a chess tournament, you're autistic.
One more thing that I want to mention on that point that I made. Look, there is a sexuality called demisexual, right? And that gives you some kind of special status. All it is people who require a deep emotional connection before feeling sexual attraction. They're called demisexual. That's normal. It's literally just normal. It's literally like, it's like, I'm going to call myself this thing so I can join
my very normal sexuality.
Yeah, exactly.
Weird.
But you don't want to be normal.
My very
you
normal
want to have
sexuality
some kind of LGBTQ classification, some way to say that I'm not like
Do you know what
these straight white people.
is?
I'm different.
Right? That's the sapiosexual one. It's ridiculous.
Turned on by people who are smart.
Yeah, I love that.
It's like you're just talking. That's just a sexual normal. That's just a dating preference.
Helping you survive in the
It's
future.
like saying like brunette sexual.
Yeah,
I'm just interested in women with brown hair.
But this is straight to my point.
It's the LGBTB. Lesbian, gay, trans, and brunette sexual.
But
that one's racist.
like that's the point. Like people are looking for a way to, like, to your point, like it's really about trying to come up with a way that they can say that they're an oppressed group, because there's so many young people that have been taught that being oppressed is actually valuable socially.
It's a hack to all caps.
Yeah.
Everything you say is in all caps. It's a life hack towards all cap speech.
Just real quick, the White House stream is the placeholder is now in place. We are just waiting for them. They've been doing captioning tests. It should begin any minute now, and we will be hearing from the president on what is being described as one of the most important speeches in this nation's history
Since the Cuban Missile.
Do you think
since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
And his face is going on.
You think it'll happen on time?
No.
He's going to make us wait.
How long do you think?
Phil, the problem.
I don't know. Usually they're a couple minutes late.
I think the problem with the over obsession on victim, on like the Marxist, oppressor oppressed thing, is that there are aspects of oppressor and oppressed in the world consistently threaded throughout. Like there's obviously very wealthy banking establishments that are oppressing people with however you want to look at it. But so don't think that there's none of it. Don't get so far against this obsession with oppressor and oppressed that you say there is no oppressor, because there are situations where we need to band together as humans to protect ourselves.
I didn't say that. That's a mischaracterization.
No. And I didn't think you are, but
that's a mischaracterization.
Some people in
But
society will be like, no one's oppressing.
When you bring up banks, right? I understand that, you have a certain perspective on banks, but banks are what allow people to acquire capital to generate more capital, right? So you
Not
go
all
to
people, but yeah.
Well, I mean, who goes
Wait,
somewhere else
all
to?
people?
Not all people can go get a
Where
loan.
else do you
That's
go?
completely incorrect. They over issue credit cards.
Well, I don't know if a random guy with no credit history can get a big loan. Can get a loan.
Okay, but
They literally can, and that's
maybe, but
one of the
a problem.
problems.
You know,
Why do you
Right,
think
so
kids?
the problem you're citing is actually the opposite of what you think it is.
hey, usury used to be illegal.
no,
Continue.
but
I think that banks have.
the point that I'm making is like
They'll give a credit card to a dog. They did, and then some lady got in trouble for it.
That's what destroyed the economy.
without capital markets, we wouldn't have the industries that we have.
But we got crony
No,
capitalism.
it doesn't. No, I'm not talking about capitalism. No, I'm not talking about capitalism. I'm talking about capital markets. So basically, that's a market for money, right? Without the ability to borrow money, you wouldn't have any of the big businesses that we have without the ability to raise capital. So like the stock market, companies that go public, that's one of the ways that they raise money. Or they'll go to a bank, small business will go to a bank and they'll say, I need to borrow money because I want to open up a small car dealership, or I want to do this. Those kind of things are actually necessary, and they are not oppressing you just because they are loaning you money at interest.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that banks are the problem. Banking has been a huge boon for humanity, but the way that the giant corporate systems are charging interest on like the Federal Reserve loan debt, that's oppressive. You know,
the Federal Reserve is a totally different thing than what I'm talking about. Like I said,
a bank.
It's still a different thing than capital markets.
Hold on a second, Ian. Are you drinking a cold brew from Starbucks and a can of Starbucks cold brew?
I've considered drinking this one.
Oh, that freaked me out because that's like 600 milligrams of caffeine.
I just had it, and this.
Yeah.
I just want to get high, man, and this is all I got is caffeine. It's
so
illegal.
that's a cold.
It's
That cold brew is about 300 milligrams.
This is.
Yeah, you don't need another can of that. I'm worried about your heart.
This is sealed. I haven't opened this yet.
Yeah, I saw both and I was
Saw
like,
this.
my
It's
God,
cinnamon and cream.
it's good. Yeah. Cinnamon and cream in the cold brew. It's fantastic.
Had
No
one
sugar.
earlier.
Very healthy.
But truly, I'm just high as
If
a
you
kite.
think Ian is bad now, I was worried he cracked open a second can and he's about to go nuts on the caffeine.
I might open it. This conversation's riveting.
Did you guys see this crazy thing, though? Speaking of capital, where Mamdani is trying to push through a rule where landlords are not allowed to ask for both income verification and
Yes.
Credit checks,
credit
yeah.
score.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think, so that basically he wants landlords to be forced to rent to people who are not qualified to rent the apartment so that those people then default. The landlords run out of money and the city can seize the
can't evict them.
buildings. Right.
Yeah.
And then the city seizes the building.
Tommy
Essentially,
Mamdani.
It's going to
this
be
is what he wants to do.
because he wants to have like
He wants
actual
a city of only,
owned.
Yes.
Yeah,
He wants
housing.
And then
Meanwhile,
it'll
NYCHA
be
housing
Pruitt
is-
Igo all over again.
It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And what I find crazy about that is like I rented apartments in New York a lot, other people have, of course, but like I rented apartments in New York for a long time. I provided my pay stub. I had to give them my credit score. Sometimes I got the apartment. Usually I didn't, but like I got an apartment. You know what I mean? Like you give them your stuff.
Sometimes I think
There
it's
is a
egregious.
market for poor people, right? Like
There's
if
a
you're-
market.
If you're poor,
I never paid more than $2,000 for my apartment.
yeah, like if you're a poor person, you don't have a lot of cash in your pocket or whatever. There are still companies and people out there
Mm-hmm.
that will do business with you. You have to understand that you're not going to get like some high rise in Manhattan.
Sure, you got to
but
go live in
there
Coney
is-
Island,
there is-
whatever.
Yeah, there's still opportunities
Sure.
for you to find housing and stuff like that.
Do you think that they should cap it like a government law
No.
where you can't ask for like 3 times the rent for move in? You have to be making 6 times your monthly rent.
That's not the apartment
15
for
times-
you. It's
No.
okay. You don't have to live in every apartment.
The problem with rent control is that if you control the rent, you don't control the cost of maintenance. So you tell a landlord you can't charge more than $1,000 per month for rent in this place, and he goes, "Yeah, but the cost of maintenance is $800 a month.
It's
Then utilities and the bills and the taxes. I'm going to be losing money on this. I need to charge more to be able to cover all the costs." And they go, "No, you're not allowed."
It's hilarious to me how concerned you are with like the Federal Reserve and big banks, but then the solution to those things is markets, like actual markets, and then you're like, well, maybe the government should say this and
Well, you
stop
need
this and stop
controls
that.
on some
No,
markets. Yeah, you do.
no.
You can't
Well,
have
on
unfettered-
some markets
Yeah, you have-
maybe, but I like
breaking
the
up
libertarian
monopolies.
argument that you're making about the Federal Reserve is in direct conflict with the argument you make about
I'm
regulation.
not sure. The Federal Reserve is a monopoly, and I'm talking about landlords getting together and deciding they're going to charge 10 times the monthly.
They don't
You need
do
to be-
that.
But hold on.
don't
That's
know.
called price fixing. That's a crime.
Well, if they do it in public, it's like, but like, how do you?
No.
How do you,
It's
how do
just-
you
it's
guarantee
just
they
a
can't?
crime.
You know, you have to make
You
it a law.
can't. It is a law. It is illegal. You can't guarantee nobody else. You can't guarantee murder doesn't happen, but you go and arrest them when you find out they
So
did.
I'm wondering, like, is a balance between what Mom Dami's doing, where you can't even ask how much they're making, and someone
That's
being like,
insane.
you have to make 10 times or 15 times your monthly rent every
If
month.
I
It's
own
just
the
like they said
building,
amounts.
I should be able to do whatever I want. It's my building. You want to stay in it? You got to pay me $1 million. Can't afford it? Goodbye.
You should be able to rent to the
reason.
people you
Perfect.
want
No,
rent
You
to.
can't just say I'm going to kill every one of my property. I can do whatever I want. This is my land. I do
said
whatever
that?
I want.
Nobody's
You're
talking
off
about
my property
murder.
unless You're going to pay me.
There's a balance
No.
of like controlling your land. It's actually government land.
No, it's not government
No, it's not government land.
property
It's not
tax.
government land. What are you
What are you
kidding?
talking
It's
about?
definitely
Government
not
land.
government
Hold on,
land.
wait. Ian's been
Property
spending too
tax.
much time with Brian.
It's
It's not
technically your
government
land,
land.
but you're paying property tax, so the government protects it
Which
for
is
you.
theft
Which is-
itself.
which-
Why?
yes, yes.
Why am I paying property
Exactly.
tax?
It's a different
I
argument.
own this freaking property. Why am I paying?
Because then you'll make a fiefdom. You got to stop individuals from
No.
becoming mini kings. You know,
And
we have-
markets
Guys,
do that.
we're about 1 minute out
Markets-
from Trump's
If they
historic
start on
address to
time.
the nation.
Look, markets do that. If the monopoly stuff that you're talking about, right? That doesn't happen when you have competitive markets. The government gets involved, and then only big companies get involved, can actually do the things like buy the buildings because.
But then how did Rockefeller?
The argument is because people need a place to live, the government can control your property. That could apply to literally any property you own.
Right.
Ian, how many coats do you have?
Exactly.
Yeah, probably like
You have
6.
Yeah, I have 2. And because people need a coat in the winter, the government should restrict on what you're allowed to do with your coat. No,
Something
that's
that
insane.
shows
It's your coat.
silo.
Or tax you for owning too many coats.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's
Especially that when it's gaudy.
landlords charging
Tax you
too
for
much
owning too
can
many
become a
cars.
problem.
No.
I want to avoid a communist revolution, so
But
I'm looking
here's
for
the
middle
thing,
ground.
you know, like,
No,
there's
the middle ground is what
on
makes the
this.
communist revolution happen.
Yeah, there's no middle ground on this one.
Usually,
because
yes.
If it's your property, if you own it, then you're in charge of how it operates. And if you want to charge, $5,000, what is it, like $5,500 is like the median
it's the
rent
average
right
price of
now
rent now,
in New York City. And let's say you want to charge $5,500 for a studio apartment. If I can't afford that, my choice is to not rent there and go find a different apartment.
Yeah, like you're talking.
Or don't live there.
There's
But Ian, when
plenty
you
of
say finding a
options.
middle ground, understand what's happening is there's a left and a right. The communists come in and pull the left and then come to you and say, how about the middle ground, Ian? Pulling you to what used to be the left.
Well, BlackRock's
and when
pulling
you
me to
choose
the
the middle
right.
ground, they say, you're in the middle, though. You're not compromising with us. You're a right winger. They move
Right.
further left and say, come closer.
But BlackRock buying up farmland and buying up residential properties is like pulling me to the right as well.
They banned
so
it.
there's a middle ground
Trump
between
banned it.
autocracy
Trump
and
banned it.
communism.
They banned it.
Yeah. Which is
Good.
Yeah, they can't do it anymore.
Which is good.
But did they strip them of all their property?
No, you can't.
No,
do
you
that.
can't just
Well,
strip
you can
people
do
of
anything
property.
You can't
want.
just take.
Technically, they're
Okay,
Government
it is a
can't just
terrible.
take your property. They
can.
they,
Trump
they
just
have
started
the
already, he's a
eminent
minute late.
domain
I gotta
thing,
go-
but that's shitty
Wait, what
too.
was that? Hold on. What was it? What were you going to say?
I can go to the bathroom.
Oh,
God.
well, you better go because Trump's going to speak soon.
I think it's gonna be 30 minutes late.
Anyway, now that everything's just a little calmer and smoother,
Insane.
I'm with you on that.
Insane.
Property taxes are theft.
we can have a calm discussion about
Infuriating.
the importance of private property and the requirement that a nation allow its people to privately trade
Yeah.
in an effort to be bountiful economically. Phil?
See, there you,
You
go.
know,
These are the right answers.
just the argument that he makes about the Federal Reserve, and it's well founded. Like there are arguments against the Federal Reserve and the way that the government manipulates interest rates, which is. It is
Ian
the
is a
cost of capital, right? That's what the interest rate is. And when they manipulate the cost of capital, they send signals to the market that aren't actually real. That's part of why we have the inflation that we did a couple of years ago. That's part of why we have so much money in the system. And then he comes back and he says we should use the government to stop people.
Oh, here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'm proud to report that our country is safer, stronger, and far wealthier than it has ever been before. We are doing great. Less than 2 years ago, we inherited an economic and social disaster. After the worst inflation in 48 years, the wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, including criminals of all types, and 11,888 murders, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women sports,
Gender.
crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation. But not anymore. 2 years
I don't know
ago,
about that.
our country was dead. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. America is respected like we have never been respected before. We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars, like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job-creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nation's policy, because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov, this will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to TrumpAccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is 0. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide, with the murder rate at its lowest level since 1900, or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed, because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure, one where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes, and really exposes like levels never thought possible, to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country, a standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Wow. Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job. And they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems, dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it, made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned. They couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking the FBI director to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, a long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have. In a rare move, NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they know how corrupt our system is and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses. They use our public multi-billion-dollar in value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody, and it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to unite us, not to divide us. This should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of notifying the states whose election data was compromised by the People's Republic of China and many others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of Homeland Security will hold a briefing to outline his department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states, and we are committing to fix it. And we're also committing to be working with those states and local jurisdictions to help them fix and patch known technical vulnerabilities before the midterm elections. We have very important elections coming up. We want those elections to be honest. I've also ordered DHS to notify every state about non-citizens on their voter rolls and direct them to remove all ineligible voters from the lists immediately. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat because your policies are so bad.
Attached to a bill, bro.
And your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo voter ID. How simple is that? Could I have your photo, please? Photo voter ID. All voters must provide proof of citizenship. Are you a citizen of our country, please? And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel if you're going away on business or vacation. These reforms are urgently needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Okay.
No Pulte, no cash, no Blanche.
But, you know, it aligns with the Trump admin's general ethos, which is go after the systems themselves. There are instances of them going after individuals, but they seem like they're trying to clean up the systems.
So I consider this to be a little bit less than halfway to what I expected. The the information they released on the website is a little bit. There's some substance there. Voter fraud. We got actually. Let me pull this into the so everyone can see it.
I mean,
so this is the White House release. We've got the actual files on vulnerabilities and the manipulation from China, the acquisition, exploitation of our voter data, Michigan voter registration investigation, as well as non-citizens. So it's not quite a nothing burger. We'll see what happens tomorrow with DHS and what actions the executive branch will actually take to rectify this. But calling on the American people to call your senators, call your members of Congress, good, but I don't think it's going to do anything.
You know what?
I really just got to say, I think rehashing the grievances of the 2020 election is not particularly compelling to Americans, even if there was fraud at this point. It's 6 years ago, and we're pretty much sick of hearing about that. We want cheap gas, cheap groceries, green lawns. We have 4 months until the elections, and essentially, we're going to get killed in November if our campaign messages are the Iran war and the 2020 election.
Yes, but we're going to get killed in November if the election systems are manipulated. The Save
sure,
Act.
But this isn't going to change them.
Voter right. Then there's nothing you can do. If the argument is we have compromised voting systems through universal mail-in voting, and trying to address it results in us losing, then if we just go for the economics message, then they just cheat. So it's lose-lose.
Well, do you think we're actually going to get the SAVE Act? Do you think
No,
Thun's
I
going
don't.
to push it through? Because the House just managed to pass some of it the other day.
Yeah.
They keep doing this, but the Senate won't do it. And
Senate
I have to
won't take
wonder
it up.
why Trump won't go after Thune the way he went after Massey.
I don't understand why Trump won't go after Thune either. But, this speech seemed to kind of be a little bit of a waste of time, and we're out of time.
I think it's worth noting that, China being involved, or the accusations that China's involved, that's a big deal. And then to top it off, the fact that CIA and the intelligence apparatus knew about it and wasn't disclosing it, that's really, really, really bad.
Sure,
So,
it's bad, but do you think that this is going to move the needle for any voters out there?
Well, I don't think that it matters. It's not. This isn't just about getting people to vote. I understand that around the table we're all kind of focused on the midterms, and rightly so. But this isn't just about the midterms, right? This is about the way that China, and we were just talking about how much of a threat China is just earlier tonight. China's a really massive threat to the United States, and the things that they're doing undermine not just our own, just the population, but the elections themselves. Then throw on the fact that, like I said, like Trump said, that the intelligence agencies knew and didn't report about it. Like this just was. They were hiding.
That's why he brought Gabbard in. That's why he tried to get all of these classified documents released. I mean, that's been a big part of that whole deep state thing that we knew about.
Well, I mean, we didn't know that. We knew that the deep state was bad, but we didn't know that China actually they had tangible evidence that China actually was taking action, and that the intelligence agencies didn't report it to the president or to anyone, basically. So
We'll have to
that's a big
dig
deal.
into the documents for sure.
I was really satisfied when he started bringing up that these electronic voting machines were flipping votes, because this is my biggest concern. When you can't view the source code, you may as well just assume corruption or potential corruption, which is just as bad as real corruption if you need to trust the system. So then, but instead of saying pointing it at our own systems and being like, our election the votes were flipped, he said it was happening in Venezuela. So it's like something everyone can agree. Obviously, Potemkin candidate, Digital Dominion, or whoever's running these machines, upholding their faux candidate. Which they have proof, according to him now, they've got proof that these votes were being flipped digitally behind the scenes, which just indicates that it's very likely it was happening in the United States as well. He just didn't say it.
That's the Sidney Powell nonsense that we were hearing back in December of 2020. No one cares about flipping votes for Maduro. I'm going to be real with you. The Save America Act, it needs to get passed. But the issue is that, first of all, I actually, from when I was on, I did, I think, roughly 5 shows where I would get on the phone on air and call senator after senator, yelling at them that their legacy is tied to the Save America Act. And my objective was I would rant and leave voicemails on them, because you're not going to get them on the phone. But I would just leave one voicemail after another telling them how their legacies are tied to this. In particular, John Thune. John Thune seems to be someone who is as duplicitous and as neocon uniparty as imaginable. That's why he became the Senate Majority Leader. They want him in that position so that he can take the slings and arrows from folks like me and Tim and other people out there who are saying, why the hell are you not abolishing the filibuster? Why are you caving into this when you know that they certainly will abolish the filibuster as soon as they get the chance, and they've already called for it in the past? The only reason it wasn't abolished, the filibuster, back under Biden is because they had Manchin in there and Sinema who basically stopped them. But if they had the votes, they were going to abolish it. They tried doing that. And this is a matter of ultimately protecting the integrity of what America is. Because if we lose the ability to have a vote, if we cannot protect the integrity of our vote, and it's not simply protecting the integrity of our vote, it's protecting the transparency that you and I can look at elections and say to ourselves, I know that this was a fair and proper election. If you don't have that, in that case, we do not have a constitutional republic. We don't have anything here.
I agree, but why would you say it doesn't matter about the votes getting flipped digitally behind the scenes in Venezuela then?
Oh, I'm not saying that does not matter. What I'm saying is Americans do not care about what the hell is happening in South or Central America. We don't care about that.
Well, this is sort of interesting.
I understand that, but Sidney Powell was saying that 6 years ago. I remember her coming out and she was screaming, Maduro, 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 when they were saying, what proof do you have about what happened, that there was fraud and there was illegality in the 2020 election? And she would start screaming, ever since Maduro, and this is the system with Maduro. I've been hearing about Maduro for ages from people who didn't seem to have any objective or any direction as to how to remedy the problems that we're having. And that's why I'm saying this is, to me, an old argument. I agree with a lot of what he's saying. It's a problem. But you need to basically point this in a direction that's helpful.
Yeah, I think you said the CIA.
This is sort of interesting. It says
called it out.
The district attorney in Riverside County, California, revealed that a bad actor used the state's voter registration website to change the party affiliation of a large number of registered voters, made the changes by accessing personal information and without voters' knowledge or consent. I mean, that's kind of interesting to see this kind of Kennesaw State University, responsible for supporting Georgia's voter registration database, was found to expose nearly 7 million voter records, including driver's license and social security numbers of registered voters. Chinese state-sponsored cyber actors aggressively targeted U.S. critical infrastructure. So there are a lot of things in here. I mean, the question is simply releasing the data going to make any kinds of changes? Is the SAVE Act going to pass? Like you're saying, I don't think Thune is going to pass it at all. I'm not sure why. Like you were saying, I don't know why Trump
he goes
isn't
after
going
Massey
after
with reckless abandon, and
Massey
Thune gets a free
voted
pass.
out, and Thune should be held to account. Thune should have abolished the filibuster, last fall, and pushed through a lot of the Trump agenda. Because now we're facing down these midterms. We have, a couple of stations didn't even air this. People aren't even going to know about it. The people who watch ABC or whatever.
So just, real quick, CNN also didn't. They just talked about it. Mm-hmm. CBS was airing the speech, but talking over it while he was talking. And ABC and NBC just did not.
I try not to talk over Trump. I said at one point, because you've attached the bill to another thing. And talking about the SAVE Act, it is currently being attached from the House to the state foreign operations. Hold on one second. It's attached to the state foreign operations and related programs appropriation spending bill right now.
But do you think that the Senate is really going to take it up? They've refused to every single time.
I don't know why they've been refusing the bill when it's alone. I don't know the reasoning. Do they give reasons when they reject it?
Thune just says they don't have the votes.
Yeah, that's all he says.
Mm-hmm. Which is not true. Because I think they already got 50 votes to approve it on a procedural basis to introduce it or something as an attachment, and then it failed. But with J.D. Vance as a tiebreaker, they should be able to get it through.
Well, that's if they abolish the filibuster, which most people don't even understand what the filibuster really is.
Which is what? Tell me really fast.
Okay, so in order to get a bill to get voted on, you need to have a closure of the actual debate period about the bill. So that term for getting that closure is called invoking cloture. In order to invoke cloture, you need 60 votes. Then once the bill is actually being voted on, you only need to get a majority. But the point is you can never get to invoking cloture if there's a filibuster. Filibuster meaning that there's a continual debate that's ongoing. It used to be, the way the Senate operated for centuries, was that if you wanted to have a debate to be ongoing, you had to stand there on the floor and talk and talk and talk, and they used to engage in that. At a certain point, our Senate got too lazy. So what they said was, was, okay, we're not going to actually make you talk. You can just invoke it, a zombie, say it's as if we're debating right now until such time as we yank that. And then how would you close it? Well, then you need to get to 60 votes. I mean, it used to be 66 votes. They brought it back from 60 votes. Now, you hear sometimes people will talk about how do we get around the filibuster? Well, one way to get around the filibuster is that they made a special rule that you can have you only need 50 votes to invoke cloture if, in fact, you're talking about a budget bill. So what they try to do is they try to make it part of a budget. So if it's a policy thing, you need 60. You need 60 votes. But if it's about the budget, then you need a simple majority. Now, how do we end up making it about the budget? Well, there's ways you can make the Save America Act, and it's not the Save Act. There's a difference. It's the Save America Act. There are ways that you can actually make the Save America Act budgetary. But who decides whether this is sufficiently about the budget that it comes to 50 votes, or it's not about that. It's about policy, in which case it's 60 votes. There's one person who's a parliamentarian. It's called a parliamentarian. And that person that was a parliamentarian was appointed under Barack Obama. And she's stayed in this position for the last, 15 years or so as serving as the parliamentarian. So she says that, hey, look, this is not really about budget. This is really about policy. In that case, you can't get 50 votes to vote cloture. You need the 60, and it's going to die. Thune knows this. Thune knows all of this. He knows this perfectly well. So what he could theoretically fire the parliamentarian, replace the parliamentarian, but he's not going to, because he pretends that he's all about following the Queen's rules of how we deal with things. This is why they don't abolish the filibuster, which they could easily decide. Who decides filibuster? The Senate. The Senate decides their own rules. They could say we're abolishing the filibuster. He's not willing to do that. They can fire the parliamentarian. This is all John Thune's orchestrated decision to basically thwart Trump's agenda. That is what we are seeing happening here, under the guise of what can we do, and the hand wringing and the pearl clutching, and there's nothing we can do. This is what the rules of the Senate say, and ultimately it's a purposefully designed failure by our Senate GOP, led by John Thune. May God have mercy on him.
I don't know a lot about him. Does he specifically, as he said, he doesn't want it to pass?
No, of course not. He's a classic double speak politician who says, oh, look, I'm really trying, because he knows it's not just the GOP that wants this thing passed. It's literally, according to polls,
80%.
I heard 80 to 87% of all Americans, including the craziest of crazies.
Including like
But
a majority
the elites
of Democrats.
in the uniparty want to cheat. They want backroom control of our election, so they won't pass it.
100%.
Yeah, man, the people that run the parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, which are private companies, which is crazy to me. They have like their super delegates in the Democratic Party, 700 people that get to basically guide and decide who the candidate's going to be, regardless of who votes. And then in the Republican Party, it's 172 guys or something, like 180 people that get to decide. That's if someone resigns. Ideally, they don't get to pick. But it's two-party. It's oligarchy. That's what we got going on right now.
Agreed. And it's pathetic. Now the question is, I think that there is some sort of caving to pressure that could happen if people were really harassing them day and night. You have to think that there would be some caving to pressure. Although, to be fair, there's enough bad will and secret animus against Trump that's brewed in the Senate GOP that I'm not sure it could actually pass filibuster if push came to shove. Because if you go through the numbers, there's 53 senators. We have Lindsey Graham is dead. Mitch McConnell, who hates the bill, hates Trump, and has actively voted against it, he's in a coma or dead or whatever. You can pick your pill on that. Then you have Cornyn and Cassidy, who have basically been humiliated in their primaries because Trump came out against them. So they openly despise him. That's already 4, not to mention that you have Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, who are always a shaky bet on the best of days to actually side with doing the right thing on behalf of America. So now you have to ask yourself, would we even get 250 if it became part of that? And I don't know. I mean, frankly, I think the best I don't think there's any way the Save America Act is going to come into effect for the 2028 election, for the 2026 election. The best we could hope for is that it gets passed, and that it would come into effect for the 2028 election, that's the best we can hope for. But I'm skeptical about how that would happen before we have the new term starting in 2020.
So the attachment to the state foreign operations related programs, appropriation spending bills, trying to get it so you only need a simple majority of 50.
Precisely.
But is this bill, the state foreign operations bill, the one that says we're merging the American military with the Israeli military?
Yep.
That's the problem. That's
They're
why
trying
people...
to bribe them.
No, that's
they're
not
trying
the
to bribe.
problem.
They're trying to say, you give us what we want, and we'll give you what you want.
That's
You know,
not.
the U.S. Israel, like, what is it, like strategic merger or whatever they're calling it? That's insane.
It's stupid, and they shouldn't. But at the same time, it's not the problem.
Technological
that's not
partnership
why.
and command structure.
That's not why. Like, that's not the problem for the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act has its own individual problems. The idea of U.S. working more closely with Israel, like, I'm not for that. Like, I don't want to see that happen. I don't like the NDAA overall generally because that's how they've done a lot of really bad policy. Just shove it into the NDAA. But the two things are different things. If they put the SAVE Act onto the NDAA and take out the Israel stuff, I'd be totally fine with that. You know, that would be like the best case scenario.
I feel like the
That's
Israel
not
thing is a
happening.
poison pill to make sure it doesn't pass.
Yeah, I mean, especially since you just had, 103 Democrats in the House voting against
Right. So
Israel funding.
they put the Save America Act in the NDAA, but then they also attach this Israel military technological partnership, they're calling it.
There's
and
something
then
for
you
you to
get
hate.
everybody fighting.
There's something for you to hate no matter who you are.
Exactly.
This is like going back to the Lauren Boebert thing of everything should be, wasn't she like everything should stand alone as its own bill?
Yeah, I think
that makes
Massey
a
been
lot of
saying that,
sense. Yeah.
MTG.
A lot of people were saying that.
And they should all sunset.
Yeah.
Every single law introduced should have like a default, like 4-year period or something, after which it has to be re-upped or it dissolves.
Listen to
Right.
you big dreamer. We can't.
Yeah.
We can't even get a budget.
I know.
We just have a continuing resolution year after
How
year
many
for the
years
last.
has it been?
Since I think
Yeah.
1999. I think is the last.
It's been a
time.
CR since 99.
Yeah. Like literally, since like the Twin Towers have come down, I don't think we've had a budget, and we're supposed to create a brand new one with 12 separate bills every single year. And, so like you tell me, like we're going to actually start creating a new system where statutes get sunsetted. I mean, we have to deal with a little bit of reality here. I think the first thing is let's get the freaking Save America Act passed.
Oh, stand alone? Or do you prefer it attached?
Of
Doesn't
course.
matter.
Of course, I prefer individual bills. However you get this damn thing crammed through. Frankly, the ideal thing is to abolish the filibuster and to basically say, screw it. It's going to be abolished anyway. We might as well get what we want out of it and get the Save America Act, amongst other things. Also, I mean, the Save America Act is really just the tip of the iceberg as far as issues that need to be remedied.
It seems like a filibuster is not a bad idea in a real Congress.
When it was a real filibuster, it's not a bad idea if they have to stand up and actually talk for the whole time, right? Because then it puts a physical limitation. They can't stand there forever. They're going to have to use the bathroom. They're going to have to eat. They're going to have to drink water. They're going to have to, people can come up and I think talk for them. I think, but even still, you have some kind of limitation. But the whole like zombie filibuster where they're just like, we're just going to filibuster and stay and nobody has to actually come up and do anything. That's bad.
I want to explain to you philosophically why the filibuster was put in place, and it'll take me 90 seconds to explain this to you, why it was put in place and why it's no longer a proper system to have in our government. The reason senators have a 6-year term rather than a 2-year term, and when there's 2 senators per state, no matter how large the size of the state, is because we basically look at that role of Congress is to lay out long-term strategy on behalf of the United States and recognize that in 2 years, it's not enough time to pass a bill and see how it's fleshing out. So that's why we gave a lengthier time. That's why our founders gave a lengthier time to the Senate. And they said, we're going to give them 6 years so that they actually have a longer period of time to watch their statute that they are their children to unfold. Now, we also want to make sure that there's some sort of consensus across the aisle. So that's why they said we're going to have it a 2/3 majority, which later gets cut down to a 60% majority. That in order for a bill to pass, you need to actually have this majority, which we're expecting is going to require there to be some sort of compromise between both sides of the aisle. And that's what the entire system that was set up by founders was designed, that was find a way to compromise, that what some states want and other states don't want, that would ultimately be resolved. But what you have here today, and the reason that the purpose and objective of the filibuster has become stupid, is because it's no longer about ideologically what is right for America. That politics has become so completely identitarian that it ultimately is, I don't care what your policy is. Your policy, you could be saying the exact same thing I was screaming for 3 months ago. And you could be saying that that's what you want, but I hate you, so I am voting against it. Yep. That is not trying to reach compromise. That's no longer about that. This had a genesis in the Obama era, but now we're at a place where I don't care what it is that's coming out of your mouth. Since it's coming out of your mouth, it is evil, and I'm voting against it. How do you have a compromise with that?
I don't know. Is that because
you don't?
It's like you're keeping score, and like for every bill you get passed, you think that is leading them closer to getting reelected. And I'm like, I don't want you to get reelected, so I'm not voting for your bill.
This is all about power.
There's an interesting thing in here in the China section. It says, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. The strategy included efforts to use Chinese contracts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the U.S. president. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them to write more negative articles about him. The Chinese government wanted the U.S. president to lose the next election. I wonder who those journalists and businesses are.
But it's probably in the files. I pulled up one of them and I was reading some of the emails.
Yeah, I'm going through all the China ones while we're sitting here
First
chatting.
thing I thought was Twitter, but I just haven't seen any evidence yet.
Well, we're going to go to your Rumble rants and Super Chats, so smash the like button, share the show, subscribe to this show if you haven't already, and share it. Thank you, guys, for supporting us. The uncensored portion of the show will be up in about 10 minutes, so you don't want to miss it. It's going to be at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. Dan Vicious says, Libby looks gorgeous and amazing.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Let's see. Laura says, I used to drag race and I would get my nails done before a race. Your sentiment reminded me.
Drag race?
Whose?
Is that like
Wait,
what kind of drag?
It's just when you race a car.
Oh.
Two of them go really fast and one of them.
You get your nails done.
A different kind of drag.
Denalex says, my brother-in-law in prison. They're trying to deport him and he's an American citizen. Any suggestions to who I need to talk to?
God.
No. A lawyer?
Yeah.
Probably an immigration lawyer, yeah.
Yeah. Christian says, Tim, have you ever played Mass Effect Andromeda? The main character has an AI hardwired into his brain that I feel that is what Neuralink is going to be like. Have you guys played that?
Is that the third one or the fourth one? I played one and two.
I think that was the third one, and people just generally didn't like it.
Yeah. I heard that. Onboard AI, dude.
You going to get the Neuralink implant, Ian?
Man, I can't decide if I'm going to be a cybernetic or a mutant. I think I'd prefer to become a mutant.
I agree. I would rather be a mutant than...
Like, get psychic powers.
But also, I'd rather not be either of those things.
Really?
Yeah.
To keep up, I want access to the net.
I would like to live forever. Like, I want to be 11,000 years old and in perfect health, but I don't want to have to do anything weird to do it.
That's if you ever, like, want to break the ice, just ask them if they prefer to be a cyborg or a mutant.
Yeah, I don't think I would.
Yeah.
I mean, mutant is like you know, Botox,
CRISPR,
and stuff like that. Yeah,
forced mutations with CRISPR.
Seems terrible.
I'm down with that. No, I'm not down with any of it. To be honest, I gotta go slow. I want to oversee the people that are getting it, and then I'll maybe jump in.
You want to oversee, as in like watch them, or you want to be in a position of authority over them?
Oh, the first one. Watch, observe if they go crazy.
You want them to be guinea pigs
in
the experiment first.
All right, Forced Name Change says, Ian, I spent 3 hours today chopping down a 30-foot-long, 5-foot-wide, and 20-foot-high hedgerow of caragana bushes. I used a chainsaw that was a POS, temperature around 95 degrees Fahrenheit. What did you do today?
I went to Aldi and bought a bunch of fruits and vegetables.
He's got this cold brew.
Drank a bunch of coffee.
Be careful with those.
He tried to will it to rain because it was hot out, but it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Nope, didn't do that.
It's got a great coat. That's an amazing coat.
I observed my
Tim should tax you on that.
You like it that much?
Tax you on the coat.
It is gorgeous. It's enlivening.
Well, I called it gaudy earlier.
No, I like it.
Suck it. Hope you like my brown leather.
Let's see. We'll grab a bit more here. Skull says, "I love you, Ian."
Thank you, Skull.
Look at that.
Are you AI?
See, the thing is, as much as people in the chat complain about Ian, most people aren't commenting and they love Ian.
I think
that's like a love to hate thing. where I think they view Ian kind of like I don't know whether a character.
Like a silly sidekick that won't take anything seriously. Like, just stop for a minute and be serious. And I'm like,
but I think I mean there's a dynamic to the conversation when there's a dispute and Ian doesn't understand something or has a different viewpoint. That I think it's boring if we're all just going, I agree too.
Plus, like,
I agree.
My real take is when we talk about the liberal economic order and the deep state, it's so serious that if you don't laugh, they'll kill you. It'll be the worst. You'll be such a target because I really want to fix the global economic order.
From Aldi.
That's not an easy ask, So I got to act like aloof and goofy and bring light levity to it so people enjoy the process.
We got an important one here. This is from Scribbly Bear. It says, rumor has it Phil and Ian are besties and give each other a long bro hug before and after each show. That's not true. Phil gives Ian a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah, he smells good.
Shower right before the show every day.
Hey, Phil's a good driver, for the record.
Beer Run says, yo, remember when Chuck farted? I saw that. Chuck Schumer farted. Is that what happened?
We all heard about it. He did. He farted.
Did he really, though?
I don't know.
No, I thought it was like
I didn't
interference.
want to watch the video because I was like, come on, really? Senators farting is news? I hate this.
I got to be honest. The
covered
diarrhea parasite thing, I also think is not news.
You don't think the diarrhea? I think it's good to remember that you should wash your hands and your food.
Apparently, they're saying it's like
Wash your
bagged salad.
vegetables. Yeah, it looks like it came from Tyler. What was
But here's the thing. Like, I go to Wendy's, I eat a bad burger and get food poisoning. It's not news, and
It
this
came
happens
from
all
Taylor-
the time. You
Taylor
get
Farms, which
food
was
poisoning happens
also-
all the time.
Sure.
And so I just think it's a slow news period, and people were like, "We have one." It was literally 1,634 cases the other day.
Well, the fun part about
just not
that
news, I'm
story,
sorry.
the fun part about that story, we ran that story, and the reason we first ran that story was because it was the highest number of cases was in New York City. And we were like, there you go, Mom Donnie. Go to Mom Donnie's.
Well, he's
New
eating with
York
his hands.
Exactly. See, this is why it was a fun
Get
story
diarrhea.
at first.
I like hearing about all the people that didn't know if they got the viral diarrhea or they couldn't tell. It's like,
Or
how
if
much
they were
diarrhea
just
do you
sick.
have?
Like, how much is-
No.
Yeah, like
That's what Tate said. Tate was like, "I think I have it, but I wouldn't know because nothing changed."
God.
Yeah. But yeah, like food poisoning is not news. It's just people were bored, I guess.
Especially when you're when you have so many people that are like, oh, it was Taco Bell.
Yeah, it turned out it was Taco Bell, and it was
coffee.
apparently the same company that caused the E. coli break at McDonald's several years ago.
Great news.
Oh.
Great news.
Yeah.
Look, I think that Taco Bell's worth the risk, though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't eat Taco Bell very much, but it is probably my favorite fast food out there. It is
I actually
so
skipped
delicious.
strawberries for the week, and I bought watermelon because, they're closed.
From Taco Bell?
No, from
Oh, okay.
A couple weeks ago, I blended up a watermelon and then put it in my dehydrator and made like fruit roll-ups with it.
that's weird.
Dude, I
Is it
came
good?
back from the show and saw you eating a watermelon at like 4 a.m. when we were in Vegas. It was a wild sight, right?
Okay, this
Down.
one's funny.
Good eat. I love watermelon.
Stacker of Things says, Libby in here making me wish I had an overdue library book.
Well, it's cute.
Very clever.
Lord says, it is difficult to preach the virtues of hard work and capitalism when we've seen our money become worthless and the American dream grow out of reach for most of us. No wonder DSA is surging. We have to message better.
Yeah, partially, but look, I mean, it takes time for for wages to rise after a bout of inflation. So there's no quick fix. The inflation that happened, like we had real bad inflation for a couple of years there, and prices they don't go back. Like it's not like they're going to change back to the way they were before 2020 or what have you.
But it's not just messaging. I mean, there is a harsh reality. The harsh reality is that if you're some 25-year-old kid right now, you feel as if you have very little prospect you're ever going to be a homeowner. This is a relatively new thing.
Yep.
That you don't feel as if you're going to have a better life than what your parents have, and you feel as if the American dream is dead.
Yep.
So if you want to actually keep them from saying, like they're in a foxhole, I have nothing else to try. Whatever I have here isn't working. They're going to say, let me try socialism.
Yep.
The best way to fight against this wave of evil is to actually implement strategies that make life more optimistic and realistically optimistic for today's youth, because otherwise they're just going to say, what the F, let's just try whatever we can.
Yeah, it's tough to preach property rights when kids are like, I don't own anything.
And I never will.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but the DSA does have to lie about this by drawing a distinction between what they call private property and personal property, which is fake. They made that up. Because what happens is some guy goes, but what about like my phone? No, that's personal property. Private property is like a factory. Oh, I get it. They don't. What they're basically saying is you don't own a building, so we can exploit you, but we're going to take your phone too.
Yeah, because they want the means of production. If you're using a computer to, produce videos or anything like that, well, that has become the means of production. That's your means of production. So the idea that you're going to own anything other than maybe your toothbrush, like you can toss that out. You drive for Uber. That car is a means of production. You own a computer to basically do anything. That's a means of production. They will take essentially everything from you if they can.
Well, the evils are glaring. I'm simply saying that if you want to get people to shy away from those evils, you have to increase their opportunities to actually have a happier life under capitalism.
Nicholas says, "I'm here for Timcast ASMR. Put the mic back in your mouth." Well, it's the NPR style. You're listening to Tim Pool. This is Timcast IRL. Joining me today is Phil Labonte. Phil, you were recently discussing why Ian is insane and wrong.
Yes.
Please tell me more.
Ian Crossland believes that he can change the weather with his mind. Now, everyone knows that this is not possible for human beings, but Ian Crossland continues to assert that the rain is actually at his command. Libby,
Well,
do you have thoughts on this?
There are critics who would disagree with you, Phil, and they would say that, in fact, Ian can change the weather with his mind.
We have to remain balanced by recommending that
Yes,
people
of course.
hear both sides of the story. And
Both sides.
that is that perhaps Ian can change the weather, and Phil, you're a bigot.
Well, I am a bigot, and I disagree.
There are concerns that this is a white supremacist perspective.
Well,
If it has been argued that if you believe Ian can't, in fact, change the weather, you're actually a racist and you hate women.
See, I want to lean into that.
All of that is true.
Yeah, well, I know. Well, the thing is, if I lean into the joke, I know someone's going to clip it and be like, "Oh, look at what said," blah blah blah.
The response is, no, you're correct. Yes, Ian can't control the weather. I hate women as well.
Yeah,
You're afraid of the clip. The clip is to be feared.
the clip is to be feared. It is.
You just have to speak in a way that's impossible to clip. You have to say things like, "It is simultaneously true that I believe Ian can't, and also that women are, but the weather, and they're bad." You got to do it like Smeagol. You have to look one way and then look the other, and then interrupt yourself.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm
Did you see
still
We're gonna go to
solid on the
played
you can't
Gollum?
change
He's
the weather.
like, we're
Andy
not doing
Serkis?
we're not doing politically correct casting.
Yeah, no, he said
Shire
we're
is
all white.
Shire is white.
But he's also the guy who made Animal Farm woke. So,
Oh, yeah.
my friends, we're going to go to the uncensored portion of the show. So if you want to check it out, it's at rumble.com/TimcastIRL. You don't want to miss it. It's always fun, not so family friendly, but definitely check it out. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Good sir, would you like to shout anything out?
Yeah, I'd ask if you all check out my channel, Good Lawgic, which is on both YouTube and Rumble. Make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell. You can check my merch store if you're so inclined. But I do a live stream every night at 10 p.m. Eastern, following up pretty much right after Tim Pool. You may have been fed over to me. And I try to make it both entertaining and also something you're going to learn and follow what's going on in law and politics. And check me out there. Thanks.
Spent the last week spreading the gospel of changing the weather with my body in Las Vegas, but there wasn't a lot of moisture in the air, so it's harder
You
to
made it less
prove
humid for all of us.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. I think I got some people on board. It's very important because in the future, they're going to start modifying the weather, especially the AI is going to try and destroy humanity by corrupting our weather systems and ripping up our food supply. So we have to counter that with magnetism. Let's start training now. Phil Labonte.
Libby.
Hi, I'm Libby Emmons. I have a podcast, Another Pointless Podcast, and I think I speak in an NPR voice on the podcast. So if you're into that sort of thing, you can check it out at the Pod Millennial. You can also check out the Post Millennial, where I'm the editor, and see everything we're writing over there, and humanevents.com. You can check that out, and you can find me on Twitter, which I am dead naming at Libby Emmons.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm also on Patreon at Phil That Remains. You can check out the band All That Remains on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, YouTube, Spotify, and Deezer. Ian cannot change the weather, and the left lane is for crime. Carter.
I beg to differ. Ian can change weather sometimes.
And y'all gotta stop. Y'all gotta stop.
I can't say with certainty that he can't do it. I
can.
know, man. I'm Carter Banks. You can follow me at Carter Banks everywhere, at Carter Banks Official everywhere else, and follow the label at Trash House Records on YouTube. Let's get into the after show.
We'll see you all at rumble.com/TimcastIRL right now. Thanks for hanging out.